Welcome to the FiveStack, everybody. That's Zev. I'm Dean. Narrative.org is Zev's Substack. DeanBlundell.substack.com is mine. And we're a little late, but we're kind of early. Usually we're 5:30. Hi, everybody. Come on in. Come on in. The water's fine. Good to see you all. We're supposed to be at 3 o'clock, and then Zev sent me a really nice note saying, hey, if you don't mind, 3:30, I'm running a little bit behind because I'm not used to this time, which Zev works his ass off. He's like a 15-hour-a-day guy, right? He stays up late. He's writing. He's informing. He's got this series on feudalism. We're going to get to that. We're going to talk about Elon Musk. We've got Trump. We've got the Canadian election today. And I was rearing to go at 3 o'clock, and he said 3:30. And so what I did, because I'm a nice guy, is I sold you out immediately to all the people in the chat. They're like, why not 3 o'clock? And I'm like, it's his fault.
Yeah, this is my fault. I confess it's my fault. However, this earlier move to this earlier time slot is not my fault.
No,
so
it's me.
that's Steve's fault. But it doesn't matter. We're happy to be here with you on the FiveStack because you got so many great people showing up at this hour. Look at that, 127 people already here. That's so nice that you came.
So nice.
And it's early.
Thank you.
We do love you, and it's awesome to have you here. We're going to do the same thing we normally do at 5 or 5:30 when we start then. We're going to do the top 5 stories of the day, counted down from 5 to number 1. And I'm going to start off with this one. It's an unusual story for our top story.
You don't want to pre-chat about the Canadian election first? You don't want to get a big election
I'm happy
today?
to talk about the Canadian elections if you'd like to talk about that, because people, I hope, are voting everywhere in Canada right now. It's important.
Oh, dude,
it's a big turnout today. It's a big turnout.
I thought you wanted to grease the track with the Canadian election ahead of time, but I want to get to all 5 of these stories, but I just have a couple things to say, if I may, boss.
Okay, well, why don't we start with that as the Canadian elections, number 5. Will be our number 5 story. Canadian elections.
Maybe 5.5. We could get, it depends, because you've got some really solid shit
It's our
today.
number 4 story, so we'll make it our number 5 story, and then no problem. Let's do number 5. The Canadian elections are on.
Yes, they are.
Go. It's you wanted to do this. Oh, anyhow, there's elections happening today.
I was leaving you hanging, dude. Yeah,
that's okay. I do no such thing. So President Trump today, he really upended the elections in Canada because he truthed his way. Is that how you say it when you post something on Truth Social?
He truthed?
He truthed, I guess. He did a post calling Canada to become America's 51st state, going back to something we thought he'd retired. A little bit he'd retired, but he brought back. Trump urged Canadians to elect conservative leader Pierre Poilievre as they head to the polls today. He promised to cut taxes in half, I don't know how, and provide military protection, just as a gangster would, for a free Canada, for free at least, if Canada joins the U.S. He called the border an artificially drawn line, of course, and falsely claimed U.S. subsidizes Canada with hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies. It does not. So this isn't just an endorsement. It's a blatant call for Canada to hand over its sovereignty, resources, and identity to the United States.
Yeah.
Dean, what do you think?
Yeah, on election day, dude. Like, this has been the craziest election cycle of all time here in Canada. And it's not just because of Trump. It is mostly because of Trump. But you have Trump Light and Trump trying to get Trump Light elected so that they can take over Canada and the Northwest Passage and the Arctic and magify this country full of fucking hillbillies and morons like Trump did in the United States of America.
Yeah.
So, the one thing that Canadians don't like, and I said this on the podcast a while ago, and so, 3 months, it's Donald Trump. It's authoritarianism. It is, I mean, hey, listen, we've got a great relationship with Americans, but do we like America? Yeah, not really. Because this is Trump's America. No, I like do. America. I like Americans. But dude, there's a difference between MAGA Americans and Americans, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And they own that country right now. So anyway, we'll park that over here for a second. 3 months ago, and I'm just going to rip through this and we'll get to the tweet or the Truth Social or the Truth or whatever the fuck it's called. So 3 months ago, Pierre Poilievre, dollar store Trump, he is flying high, 30-point lead. I'm the man. Blah, 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 blah. He's calling people names. He's gaslighting. He's lying. He's hanging out with degenerates. He's getting hammered at truck stops, walking out of these truck stops filled with ditch bellies, these people that are like, we're not leaving this ditch, literally camping in ditches outside of Ottawa. We're not leaving this ditch until the carbon tax gets canceled. Woo!
I love
these
that.
Are people that haven't filed for taxes in about 30 years, by the way. So, yeah. So, anyway, he's flying high. You could do no wrong. Like, you literally just walking around hammered all the time talking to a bunch of hillbillies and had a 30-point lead. Well, then Trump comes along. And he wins the election. And then he starts talking about taking over Canada. Then he starts talking about tariffing Canada. And then we start getting a glimpse of a Pierre Poilievre-led government because we're literally watching Donald Trump do what Pierre Poilievre wants to do here. The rhetoric's the same, the language is the same, the policy is the same. Anti-woke, we're going to kill the woke people, we're going to get the trans people, we're going to blah, 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 blah. It's all the same. It's all the same. We're going to bring a country back for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, blah, 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 blah. The Christian nationalists, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's just stupid. It's just, we all know what it is. So Justin Trudeau, who, I know there are a lot of people like him. I did not. He steps aside because it's untenable. Dude was underwater, had a 30-point differential between him and Pierre Poilievre. And keep in mind, everybody hates Pierre Poilievre as well, but Justin Trudeau ran his course. So long story short, Mark Carney arrives on the scene. Before he actually becomes leader, support for Pierre Poilievre tanks to a leaderless party with no leader. Justin Trudeau stepped aside. So Mark Carney comes in, still isn't the leader. You start seeing Pierre Poilievre's poll numbers tank. Then you start seeing the Liberal numbers go up. And now Mark Carney is effectively sitting on, depending on which poll you look at, a 3 to 10 point lead. It is election day in this beautiful country of ours. We are going to pick a new prime minister. Hope against hope. It's not Pierre Poilievre, dollar store Trump. I've made a prediction, 190 seats for the Liberals, 130 for the Conservatives. I put that through a couple of different models just to get that out there. Everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, sports betting sites, odds sites, they've got Carney 80% chance of winning. So long story short, I am going to make this short because I've said it twice and now I'm still long. So just hang in there with me. Hang in there, friends. It's election day here in this beautiful country.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump mostly stayed out of it because his name is poison and it's killing Pierre Poilievre. And he launched a tweet today. I want to read this to you.
It's great. It's great. I love it. Should I read it?
I was so grateful for it. Yeah, I'm honest to God. I was so happy he did this. And here's why. I'm going to tell you why I'm happy he did this. Because he's one of the greatest liberal campaigners of our time. Let me read you this tweet. Good luck to the great people of Canada. Elect the man who has the strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half. There's one politician that said he's going to cut taxes in half, and that's Pierre Poilievre. So there you go. Increase your military power for free, by the way, because Pierre Poilievre would just... Yeah, exactly. You just say, hey, come on in, and we don't want to build any military equipment. You come in here, Don. That's what he's doing. For free, the highest level in the world. Have your car, steel, aluminum, lumber, energy, and all of the businesses quadruple in size. This fucking sounds great. With zero tariffs or taxes. Ooh. If Canada becomes the 51st state. State of the United States of America. I don't know. It's just in the middle of it. It's just what it says. State of the United States of America.
I think he felt like he needed to put the punctuation mark at the end of 51st. I think that's what was going on.
Problem with the period. No more artificially drawn line for many years ago. Look how beautiful this landmass. Calls it a fucking landmass.
Who looks at a landmass and thinks how beautiful it is?
What a great
landmass. Yeah. Really?
Free access with no border. All positives with no negatives.
None.
It was meant to be.
Except that Trump would be your president. Other than that, no problem. You know?
It was meant to be, he says, Seth. It was meant to be. Yeah. America can no longer subsidize Canada with hundreds of billions of dollars a year that we've been spending in the past. It makes no sense unless Canada's a state. Donald Trump's True Social, 8:36 in the morning. I have it on good authority that not only made everybody in the liberal war room cheering today, that really upset Pierre Poilievre's crew.
Oh, really?
Because
he's endorsing him. I mean, the leader of the free world is endorsing Pierre Poilievre right there with all these amazing promises. And what? They didn't like it? They didn't like the endorsement by the guy himself, the king of the world?
The king of the world? No, the king of the world is poison. King of the world is basically walking VD, political VD at this point. So he is. He's just walking political herpes. And so, I got to thank him. I'm just going to... Don, thanks. I appreciate it. Really appreciate your help today because Mark Carney should win with a bit of a statement after
what he's
that
thinking?
shit.
You know what he's thinking? He's thinking, if I back Poilievre and he wins, I can claim it's entirely my doing. Because it will be entirely his doing. I mean, clearly, no one else could have made this man win this election today except Donald Trump. So that's his thinking. He's thinking, if Carney wins, well, then it's okay. I can make up something about that too. But he thinks if I back Polyev, I can be the kingmaker there. And look, to be fair, the polls are actually quite tight. And I know many people believe that it's going to be the Liberals that walk away with a big majority and that Carney's going to be the prime minister.
Why not be?
We don't know that yet. It's still hours before the polls close, and turnout is big today, which means that a lot of right-wing people probably are voting today. And that could swing what we already knew about the polls, which was that the people in the early votes were likely to be more liberal. So, plus, I saw this interesting stat that, almost 50% of young Canadians support Polyev. And that's a huge number. 50% is huge. So it's really the older people, very politically savvy people maybe, who are out there supporting Carney. But the younger folks seem to be in favor of Polyev, seem to be in favor of becoming the 51st state. So just in fairness there, as much as it'd be ludicrous if they actually did pick Polyev and not Carney, but it could happen. It could happen. And then Donald Trump would be able to say, hey, I called it.
How much of that, I don't disagree with you. How much of that do you think is motivating Donald Trump to put that tweet out? That whole okay, listen, I need to be like the center of fucking attention in the Canadian election. And if I call this for Polyev, if I support him right here and he pulls this out, then I get to tell the whole world that if it wasn't for me, Polyev wouldn't have won. That's how fucking powerful and cool I am. I think that has a lot to do with it.
I think it's exactly what he does. He does it all the time. This is his whole thing. And look, and he'd be able to go to Polyev and say, hey, you owe me because I made you PM. You got to deal with me now because I got you this huge victory. It could be. I mean, look, a lot of people get this Donald Trump tweet or Truth Social or whatever. They'll see it today. Canadians will see this. Will it motivate a Canadian to vote? Well, he makes a lot of good promises, It really is kind of election interference in a way that you would never imagine a foreign leader ever doing in a independent country. But this is different rules under Trump. This is a different world we live in right now. And here is Donald Trump supporting a candidate in the Canadian elections. It's really unheard of when you think about it. It's just a ridiculous notion.
Well, and it's not like the other presidents. I was thinking about this today. Have any other presidents ever endorsed a leader for Canada? And Obama endorsed Trudeau, right? Like you remember that. But that was like weeks ahead of time. Yeah. He's like, hey, I really like him. I think he's great.
Yeah.
But this was like a full-throated, and he didn't have to say his name. That's the funny part. He's like, vote for the guy that'll cut your taxes in half. You know what I'm saying? That guy. And it's so like it's him trying to insert himself and that centrifuge of pure ego into the mix because they're not. This is the thing that gets me about him too, because no one's talking about him enough. But part of that is his fucking, and everybody's talking about him, and it's all bad. Like his approval rating, the worst in presidential history after 100 days. It's his 100 days today. It is an unmitigated disaster. So anytime he gets a chance to change a channel, he will, and that's exactly what he did today. But I'm telling you, categorically, through data, through analytics, every time he opens up his mouth, Canada hates him 20% more. Every time he talks about coming up here to take out all of the people of this country, every time he says cherished 51st state, 91% of this country throws up in their fucking mouth. And including people who 3 months ago were like, I'm voting blue. I'm going to vote conservative. In Canada, conservatives blue and liberals red. Switch those things around in the United States. I'm voting blue. And you know what? I have friends that have held fundraisers for him this year who are not voting for him because they know what's at stake.
Canadians have been, thanks to us, by the way, thanks to our original programming back in December where we exposed Polyev as who he is and Trump and Musk's campaign to elect Polyev back into, we're amongst the earliest people to do that, I think, if not the first. Look, people understand what Donald Trump's about. People despise Donald Trump. But this post is going to get to a lot of Canadians today. And they're going to say, hey, my taxes cut in half? Wow, I'll do that. No problem. I get to travel to the United States and live wherever I want to in the United States. No problem. I'd love to live there because it's warmer in the United States of America. I'd have to stay here in Canada's cold climate. All these tariffs are gone. Sounds good to me. Why do we need all these tariffs? Let's all make all these prices, bring down all these prices. Plus, we get free militaries, whatever he's claiming. These are goods,
military.
whatever, you know. But he's saying, I'm going to give you all this defense.
Yeah.
And so it's going to speak to some people. And I guarantee you that there are younger Canadians who are thinking, wow, I could have my future in the glorious American dream and the American empire. And I don't have to be stuck here in Canada's backwaters anymore. And this is what's maybe driving some of this thinking about why he's put out this tweet or this truth today. But there you go. We'll see what happens, I guess. What time do polls close?
9 o'clock.
Okay.
So we'll probably know shortly after that. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a nail biter. And like I said, polls don't vote. You do. So make sure you get out and vote, 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 vote. If you haven't already voted, apparently the lines are long, but not too long. You can go to a number of different places, elections.ca. That's where you go to get all the information. Canada, my beautiful friends in Canada and my beautiful friends in America, we're trying to save your country at the same time. So hopefully it is a Mark Carney win. I would really like to see that today.
We should underline the stakes here. Of course, if Carney wins, I mean, the benefit for democracy is massive. Mm-hmm. What we'll see is, a coalition between the European countries and Canada, which will be incredibly strong and be able to uphold some of the democratic values that everybody loves all the way across the world, and certainly everybody loves in the United States and in Canada. And so, it's hard to overstate how important it is that Carney wins, and that he really should be he is the new face of democracy around the world, really. When you think about it, him and Macron, who are going to be charting a course that's going to be pushing democratic values, pushing democratic principles, and pushing the ideals of democracy, because the United States ain't doing it anymore. And so, it's so vital. Otherwise, Pierre, with these ridiculous slogans, is just going to be an easy target for Trump to take over Canada and do all these things, which sound good on paper. But in reality, when you do the math, for Canadians to become part of America, their debt burden increases so much because there's so much American debt that really Canadians don't have that much debt as a national GDP debt. So it'll be much higher in that case. Mm-hmm. It's another good reason, the economics don't work out that well when you think about the fact that you get free healthcare in Canada. You don't get free healthcare in the United States. So yeah, your taxes might be a little lower, but not when it comes to healthcare, not when it comes to financing this debt, which is so massive in the States, and not when it comes to a lot of the other things, including the fact that America's slowly becoming a Nazi Germany, which, is another good reason not to vote to be part of them. Number 4 story on the charts today. We originally were going to do this as number 5, but now it's number 4, and it's all about Elon Musk. Elon Musk's approval ratings are, not surprisingly, taking a big dive. According to the Trump administration, according to new polling, the Trump administration is facing a backlash over Musk. His approval ratings are plummeting to just 43%. New polling shows 57% of Americans disapprove of Musk's performance, leading federal restructuring. There is a partisan divide, not surprisingly. 73% of Republicans support him, while 85% of Democrats oppose him. More than 275,000 federal workers have lost their jobs since March in what analysts are calling a historic purge. So, he's not popular. I guess what's surprising to me is that he's as popular as 43%. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's better than Trump, dude. He's at 38%, I believe, on a majority of issues, 38 to 41%. I think 36 when it comes to dealing with the economy, 39 when it comes to immigration, because he's not a big fan of that. He's a fan of immigration going the other way and taking your due process and human rights away while he does it, including these. I don't know if you heard the story about these 3 kids that got sent over, 2 of them with cancer, 2, 4, and 7 that he just sent out of the country. American children. Yeah. It's a big deal. So, for Elon Musk to be polling even that high, I find it egregious, to be honest with you. Same thing with Donald Trump. But Politico had a great article on this. American sour on Musk, cuts to federal government, new poll finds. It's not so much what he's doing. It's the fact that nobody knows what he's doing because he's lying about what they're doing, which is all of Doge, right? They're just lying about it, and they're committing enormous fraud under the banner of getting rid of waste and fraud. But they're committing fraud, stealing your information, and making it look like they're not. But, the really interesting part is how they have done this, right? The repudiation of a guy like Pierre Poilievre up here, who acts the same way that Trump and Musk and that cabal do, which is na boo boo, fuck you, we won, right? We're going to take a chainsaw on stage. I'm going to wear some sunglasses. I'm going to fire a couple 100,000 people and tell you that you're useless and I don't need you. It's how they have done this. The whys make sense to us now because we've ferreted through the information and we know that the why is he needs data and information so that they can surveil Americans and people from around the world so they can have access to the treasury, access to payment systems. They want to control fucking everything. So we know the whys. And the funny part is that I think they got away with it for a long period of time. The whys, they were like, maybe, maybe not. Now the whys are settled. We know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Now people are coming to grips with the how. And you can fire people. You can fire people en masse. There's nice ways to do it. Hey, really sorry, it didn't work out. He literally mocked 280,000 government employees as he was firing them, and he wasn't elected to do any of it. Like none of it. And so you've got people on the breadline today that hate him. Even hardcore Tesla fans hate him. And dude, he built a great car. I used to have a Tesla. I got rid of it when he started this bullshit. That's the truth. Like I said, I drive a Kia. But it's the how. And people are so exhausted by the anger and the meanness and the cockiness and the ego that drives MAGA, which is, like I said, nana boo boo F you. We don't give a shit because we're in charge now. And there was this old idea that if you were in public service, your job was to serve the public. Your job was to be nice to people. It was you were an employee of the people that put you there. These guys don't think like that. No. Elon Musk definitely doesn't think like that. If you remember back a couple of months ago, he put out a tweet and he's like, graveyards are covered with the bones of my enemies, and you just wait. Don't you fucking get in my way. That guy is running the country.
Yeah, he's
and
a king.
Americans are so sick of him, even more so than Canadians are. And we hate the guy, like absolutely hate Elon Musk in Canada. So it's the how, right? And this is the repudiation you're seeing up here is the how people are trying to get power, how they are treating you when they get it. And Pierre Poilievre was one of those guys. And you're seeing the repudiation of that movement here.
It's I've been covering this a lot in this new feudalism story or series that I'm doing at narrative.org. And the last two parts I just posted over the weekend, and everyone should read them.
They're great.
It's really interesting. I mean, what occurred to me as I was writing all of this, I was like, I wanted to title one of these chapters,
Dude, you're a good writer. You're a really good writer.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're quite the journalist. You're quite the broadcast and journalist.
You're so nice to me. You're so nice to me. It's because it's early, right? You want me to come early. But I wanted to title this one chapter, How Elon Musk Killed the American Spirit. Because it occurred to me on the weekend that the thing that makes America so great is it's capitalism. It's the biggest, largest open source concept project ever created. Everyone can access the same ability to make a fortune. It's completely equal other than that. I mean, yes, some people will be richer, some people will be poorer, but the access to the potential for greatness is there all the time. And everyone can access that. So what Elon Musk and his company are doing, and Doge and Yarvin and Thiel and Andreessen and all these other people are building, is basically a feudal system where you're going to have a small group of people at the very top, probably the people who own the most crypto, and they'll have the most control forever because they will have control over the blockchain that he's now moving all of government onto a blockchain. So he'll be able to control and tokenize the entire government. So every little transaction about you do with the government, whether it's getting a driver's license or voting, whatever, will come with a token, a little bit of token exchange. And he'll make money off that, but also it'll make all of government basically crypto. So once they've established that, they'll become the top echelon of all this feudal system. They'll become the crypto kings, is what I'm calling them. Underneath them, there'll be like an aristocracy, the crypto lords, if you like. And those people are going to be they're aristocracy. There's no other way to describe it. They're appointed, anointed princes or what have you. And below that, there'll be a government class which controls the administration. It's going to be able to basically make things run on time. And they'll also have access to some of this wealth and some of this power. But 95% of people will have nothing. Will have only thing that they'll be contributing to the society is basically, their data. That'll be the value that they provide. And because everything is based on crypto, everything is based on blockchain, individuals will just have this very small amount of power because we just we don't have the value. Only the big people get the votes because they have the most crypto. That's the new version of their feudal system. It's not based on votes anymore. It's based on coins. What does that do to capitalism? It destroys capitalism because the whole thing about capitalism is anybody can get there. If you work hard enough, if you try hard enough, you can get to the very top. It's no problem. But when you create a feudal system, well, it sucks out all that innovation because there's no more, inspiration to climb up because you can't get there no matter how hard you try. So
No
people
incentive.
become
Yeah.
lax and bored and whatever, they do other things with their lives because they know they can't get to be a crypto king or a crypto lord. And so this thing that they've, Doge and Elon Musk pretends to be this capitalist, like he pretends to be this like huge corporate guy, while he's sucking off the government, wealth, and that's how he's funding his company. But he pretends to be a businessman. That's his core presentation to the world. But he's actually, doing the most anti-capitalistic thing you could possibly imagine to America by destroying capitalism, by destroying the one thing that drives everyone to want to be like America, that drives everyone to get to America, is this ability that you can make it rich, you can make it big, you can become powerful no matter who you are. They are busy tearing that away. And that is the problem with what Doge is doing. Bigger than the surveillance thing, bigger than everything else, is the death of the American spirit, of the American dream, of free spirit. It's all dying with Elon Musk.
It's such a great point. And it is, if I'd encourage everybody to go and subscribe to Zev's Substack, narrative.org, and read both of those pieces on the new feudalism and Elon Musk's attempt to really be in charge of a feudal society where he and his friends and all of his resentful nerds and incel pals get to control everything from how you pay to who gets paid and who doesn't get paid. And not just that, but your reality, where you're surveilled, where you can go, what you read, what you look at, what you don't read, what you don't look at. This whole thing from Twitter was a test run. He's got his Dogecoin that's coming out. I don't know if you've seen that. He's talking about this being the biggest giveaway in the world. He's going to give away millions of dollars in Dogecoins. Dogecoins are nothing. They're shit coins. They're crypto coins. But when you own the technology and you own the most crypto that matters, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Solana, doesn't really matter, whether it's the exchanges, which they own all of it. Him, David Sachs, Peter Thiel, that cabal of people that the South African mining crew, the PayPal mafia.
Yeah.
It is literally happening in front of our eyes. And again, you go back to the whole idea that his approval rating is shit. Underneath all of the hows and the whys, there are extra whys. And you're pointing to one that is probably the scariest why about what Elon Musk and his cabal of losers, who, by the way, if the internet didn't exist, you'd never see them. Like these guys are just they're pirates of the internet. That's what they are. So it's amazing when you think about how these guys have risen to power, how Elon Musk has risen to power, and when you look at a guy that he worships, you mentioned him earlier, Curtis Yarvin, the neo-reactionary, and a neo-monarchist. This is a return to like a digital monarchy. This is they want to be the people that live in the Buckingham Palace of the United States of America. They get to redraw maps, redraw rules, change lives, change laws, just like a king would do. Yeah. And that's why your series, I assume, is called it's about feudalism, because that's what we're talking about here. And the funny part is that they had this runway to be able to try to tell people that this is about your freedom. Yeah. Well, under that banner of your freedom, which they've absolutely fucked you over, like every single one of you in Canada, the United States, under the idea of freedom in a feudal society, you have none, zero, and that's the whole fucking idea. And people bought it, and we're eating it now. America's eating it. That's what's at stake here in Canada as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no. Remember when people used to tell us about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency being like a democratic force and an uncentralized force, and it's all about taking government out of currency? In reality, what it's doing is turning government into crypto. It's exactly the reverse of what they promised us it would do. And the danger of this blockchain on crypto is once it's there, it's really hard to undo. So he's maybe 2/3 of the way into his project right now of turning the American government onto blockchain. If he gets through the last third, and I'm going to give him maybe 80 days from now until he's done that. That's not a long period of win. If he gets to that through those 80 days and he's able to turn it into blockchain, it's going to be very hard to turn that back. Yeah. Because it's going to be the way it is. It's going to be the system. And so, this is a huge thing. The crypto, these meme coins, all this crap that they're doing to enrich themselves, is also designed to just create this kind of underbelly that supports them, because everyone who owns crypto believes they're going to get rich off crypto, but only if Musk can complete their task, and only if Trump can make crypto sort of the new currency. That's when people get rich. So there's a hidden desire for people who are crypto owners to try and see him succeed, because they want to make money off it.
It's not that hidden.
Not that hidden. Who doesn't want to make money? It's very American to make money, even at the expense of the entire free spirit of America. The number 3 story on our countdown today, you know more about this than I do. There was this extraordinary exchange between Macron, Zelensky, and Trump at the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, during the Pope's funeral. Tell me what happened. I've seen some of this video. Some people say Macron snubbed Trump by not shaking his hand. Other people say Trump told Macron to go away, that he didn't want him to be part of this meeting. What's the truth?
Well, it's interesting because the Pope's funeral was supposed to be a funeral, and it turned into a circus, obviously, because Donald Trump was there. He took it in the face for wearing a blue suit and a blue tie to a function that should have been, all black. It's the Pope's funeral, for God's sakes. So there was that part. He fell asleep in there as well. Like, there's great videos and pictures of him literally going.
Do you remember when Biden used to fall asleep at various of things, and people used to make that the number one headline in the news, that Biden is too old to be the president, he fell asleep.
Yeah.
And Trump could fall asleep in front of the entire world audience, in front of the Pope's funeral, and he's just tired, poor guy. Must have had a hard day. I mean,
he's not too old. No, he's good. Dozy Don. I've counted 7 times in the last 2 years where he's fallen asleep at campaign functions or funerals. By the way,
this is the Pope's
Dozy
funeral.
Don.
It's kind of like
Sleepy Joe or Dozy Don. You'd want to fucking be awake for the Pope's funeral. Pardon my French. I shouldn't be swearing talking about the Pope. His excellency, or whatever you want to call him.
And Melania's face, I mean,
she was embarrassed. Yeah,
she was so embarrassed. I mean, she's praying.
She's embarrassed walking. Did you see her walking with him?
Yeah.
She's so embarrassed to be with us. He's just a giant hunk of garbage, and she knows it. So it's awesome to watch.
Theme of today's show.
Hunk of garbage. So effectively, as I understand it, prior to him having a nap in the middle of the funeral, a little siesta, he was cornered by Macron and Keir Starmer. Macron, obviously, the president of France. Starmer, the prime minister of England. And they brought along a fella named Volodymyr Zelensky. And they're like, let's go over here and have a chat. And ahead of time, some people with the Vatican had set up a couple of chairs. So they hijacked him. And they brought him, and they sat in these 2 chairs, and they took one of the chairs away, and Macron's like, no. And by the way, Trump tried to shake Macron's hand. He's like, whatever, I'm not shaking your hand. Just talk to him. He wants to have a word with you. And by the way, what he's going to tell you, we've co-signed. So the rumors are, and I posted something about this on Substack. You can go read it, deanblundell.substack.com.
Great piece, by the way.
Effectively, thank you. Effectively, Volodymyr Zelensky said, hey, listen, I got to tell you something. Because Trump delivered a peace deal that was just a fleecing. We talked about it last week. Give us all your minerals. You never join NATO. Russia never promises anything. They get to keep Crimea, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Donetsk, those eastern parts of Ukraine that they illegally annexed several years ago. And so this was, and Zelensky hasn't said anything about it. So Zelensky has Starmer and Macron corner tub of guts, put him in a chair, and the Vatican's in on it. They're like, because they want war to stop, right? Obviously it's a business, but at the same time, they seem to be somewhat peaceful people that don't want war, which is nice. So they're like, okay, yeah, we'll facilitate this thing. And so Zelensky did something incredible. He completely changed the script on Donald Trump by telling him a couple of things. First thing he says to him, your peace plan's not going to work. Crimea is Ukraine. Donetsk is Ukraine. Luhansk and Zaporizhia are Ukraine. So we're not doing that deal. Therefore, you're not getting your minerals. And the only peace deal we'll sign, and the only way you get your minerals, is by accepting our counterproposal, which Starmer, Macron, and Zelensky, as well as some other neighboring EU countries, put together, which is a brilliant document. You could read it on my Substack and have a look.
I'm so glad you included both, by the way. You included the American plan, then you included the European plan, because it's so good to see both side by side. And thank you for putting that on your Substack. It's really useful.
Oh, no, dude, my pleasure. Yeah, no, it's awesome. You got to show your work, right? You want people to see what you're talking about so they know you're not lying. I'm like, no, this is the peace plan. Here's both plans. Reuters actually got a leaked copy, and so we grabbed that and put it up on our Substack so you can look at it. And so he basically told Donald Trump, this is the way it's going to be. you're returning 200,000 Ukrainian children and kidnapped women. They're going to get the bleep out of Ukraine. And we're going to sign a ceasefire agreement right now. In fact, one has been signed for, I believe, 46 days. And every single day, Russia continues to bomb the shit out of residential communities. And Ukraine just keeps going after oil supplies and their military hardware and stuff like that. So they're still lobbing shit at each other. But this pissed Donald Trump off to the point. Keep in mind, he's coming off a pretty decent beating at the hands of the free world when it comes to tariffs. Nobody's lining up to help him. Now he says this war is going to be over in a day. It's been a month. On his way back, he gives an interview with Time Magazine. I don't know if you saw it, where he's like, I was joking about ending the war in Ukraine. It was a joke.
It's a joke. That's funny.
I was kidding. I was just kidding, guys.
Is that funny? Kidding. It's funny. War. Funny.
So effectively, the way it sits is he's been read the riot act by Macron, Starmer, who did one of these. They're like, yeah, we're with Zelensky, so whatever he says goes. And Zelensky's like, we're not giving you shit. We'll give you your minerals. We'll do a mineral deal with you. But you give us our hardware. We'll pay for it. And you tell Russia to get the bleep out of Ukraine, give us our people back, and sign an agreement, or this war is not going to end. We're going to keep killing Russians until it does. So go back and tell him that. And Donald Trump tweet stormed the entire way through, and he's on the plane, and he's trying to change the subject from his disaster meeting with Zelensky and Macron and Starmer, trying to change the subject with the tariffs, and trying to desperately change the subject from being that old dotard that literally fell asleep again on international television while everybody was watching.
So according to witnesses, Trump told Macron that you need to do me a favor. You should not be here. He basically told him to step away and then did his one-on-one. There was a third chair there. People assumed it was for Macron. But French television is saying it's not for, it wasn't for Macron, it was for an interpreter to be sitting there, who they apparently didn't need because they speak English. So who knows if that's really the case, but they did finally shake hands at the end. At a separate event. I think it was just before the actual service. Macron and Trump did show the world they still were decently, polite to each other and shook hands. So if that was keeping you up at night, you can sleep soundly now.
Yeah.
That is the number 2 story. Is that number 2? That was number 2, right?
Yeah, I think that was a solid number 2.
Yeah, it was a solid number 2. Oh, that's Boomer. Hey, Boomer.
Hi,
saying
Boomer.
hello.
Hi,
hey,
Booms.
Boomer.
Hey, Boomsies.
Oh, he's so cute. He's having.
What does he want?
He's having his business cut off tomorrow. He's getting neutered.
Oh, is he?
Yes, I'm quite excited about it.
Are you doing it yourself? 2 bricks?
No. He's doing it at the vet, but this needs to happen. He's been quite horny lately, literally, and marking everything. I take him for a walk, and all he does, he just just marks everything. And it's like a little bit of marking I guess is okay, but when you're like really horny, you're like marking everything. And then
hey, listen, it's me too. I do the same thing.
It's springtime, right? So
yeah.
Anyhow, tomorrow, give me patience tomorrow, and hopefully he'll be back home by the time we do the broadcast.
Get that little cone on his head so he doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, poor guy. Poor guy. He's so small. He's so small.
Yeah, I know. And you're going to get him clipped tomorrow. A lot of people would be upset with you for doing that. A lot of people would. All the wokes.
I tried as long as I could to leave it all intact and everything, but I realized that it's actually, at the end of the day, not sustainable for me in any reasonable way. Number 1 story of the show.
You're a woke, radical dog owner. Way to go.
There you go. That's what you can label me that. The number 1 story. Did you watch 60 Minutes last night?
Wow. Yeah. I'm a really 60 Minutes guy. That was unbelievable. What Scott Pelley. Yeah. At the end. Oh my God. Yeah.
No, it's very rare for 60 Minutes to do anything like this. They don't like to talk about themselves on the air. Occasionally they have to because they screw up on stories. But in this case, their executive producer Bill Owens resigned earlier in that week to protest what was becoming an assault on their editorial independence. At 60 Minutes at CBS. 60 has always been on its own floor, its own building. It doesn't really be part of CBS News. It likes to keep its sort of agenda separate, partly because they don't want leaks out there. They don't want people, interfering with their reporting. They don't want people upending their stories or anything like that. They like to keep a pretty big cone of silence on everything. So what they've done in recent months, and it's because Donald Trump sued them over this weird story that they did. This weird story is not weird, but the lawsuit.
Kamala interview, right?
Yeah, they did an interview with Kamala Harris. It was edited in a different way. Trump decided this is a reason to sue them for $10 million. Really just an excuse to intimidate 60 Minutes. What does CBS and Paramount do? They're busy negotiating this giant merger. They're going to need Trump's approval. So they created a a sort of a supervisory council, if you will, to oversee their reporting, led by the very, very lovely Susan Zirinsky, who I know very well, is a former president of CBS News, but she's now overseeing Bill Owens' work. And there were some stories that came up, I guess it's regarding Gaza in particular, that came up that were like, oh, this is really questionable stuff. You should be doing a different take. Maybe you should be writing it differently. Bill Owens felt like this was pushing it too far, that his editorial independence was slipping away, and resigned. And then you got this incredible thing by Scott Pelley yesterday at the end of the show where he's like, that he could no longer, this is talking about Owens, make independent decisions based on what was right, which is an incredible thing for 60 Minutes to say about their own work. I mean, you just don't see that kind of thing. The whole thing is really just bringing to light what I think is just the capture of American media. What we're seeing is Trump and these big empires like Oracle, which is now under their Skydance company, which is not part of Oracle, but it's run by Oracle's Ellison's son, David Ellison. He and Paramount are about to have a big merger. It's going to give Ellison control of CBS and of CBS News and of 60 Minutes, and it will also give them control of all these of these news empires, and they don't want. And because of Ellison's very close relationship with Bibi Netanyahu and Israel, I guess there's been some concern that maybe they've been trying to influence the 60 Minutes reporting on Gaza, and that this in turn is the big chill of the media in the United States. The entire media industry is facing this collusion, really, between lawsuits from Trump. You've got these mergers happening. All these things are really hurting journalists around America. And this was a sign, that Bill Owens resigning in the way he did, very powerful. It's a very brave thing to do because obviously his career is finished. But also the fact that he took that principled stand is really heroic and needs to be applauded by everybody.
Yeah, it's a wild story, and I think it really, the context that you gave, you wrote a big piece about it, about the big media chill on your Substack, and I read it. It was great. And I also had a great conversation with Steve Schmidt last week on his podcast called The Warning about this. And, he was the first guy to kind of tune me into the fact that Sherry Redstone is involved in this deal. He tuned me into Larry Ellison, which you did in your piece as well. And Skydance, Tom Cruise, part of Skydance as well. That new Mission Impossible.
Hey, you're talking about that movie, yeah.
Yeah, that's coming out. And Steve was funny. He's like, how about we just fucking boycott all of it? Like, I'll boycott a Tom Cruise movie. But, the interesting thing, and there's several interesting parts of that story. The way that Scott Pelley came out and really eviscerated CBS and Paramount and kind of, opened the Bombay doors and said, here's what we got. This is what's going on. Bill had to quit this week because 42 years, he was the producer of 60 Minutes. 42 years. That's a long time. 60-some-year-old show that's had 3 producers. He's been the longest serving by far. He was 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
And
I've known 2 of them. So,
you've known 2 of them?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, who's Fager, was his predecessor, was Bill Owens' predecessor. Oh, and,
okay.
And I worked with Bill too. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't distract you there.
No. I want to get into that a little bit, but the collusion that's going on because of this Skydance Paramount merger that they're trying to contribute. Because one of the things, the most important part of this merger is it has to be signed off by the Trump regime. Big mergers like this need government approval, and they won't get government approval unless the people at 60 Minutes stop doing stories that are pissing off Donald Trump's friends, like Bibi Netanyahu, when they did that report on Gaza and some of the horrific stuff that's happening to innocent Palestinian people in Gaza. And Bibi Netanyahu didn't like that. So he picks up the phone, he calls Miss Redstone, he calls Ellison, and he's like, hey, I'll just put a call into Trump and I'll kill this deal and none of you get billions of dollars. So, you take your pick. Even at the highest level of journalistic, standard, ethical, the highest level, that's now being touched by the poison, which is Donald Trump. And the collusion, which is MAGA and all the fascist leaders around the world that are lining up to do business with the business of America. This is that example, right? Yep. This is the example that you gave and that you laid out so well, is that if you don't think the media complex in the United States is scared to death of this man, this is one of the greatest examples of the poisoning of the media well and what his goal is, which is to prevent anybody from saying anything bad about him, his friends, or telling the truth about any of these dicks. So this is a wonderful example if you were looking for one.
Yeah, I mean, they really are trying to take over the media enterprises of America and create this chill around journalism. And they're going to succeed because there's a lot of money floating around. And this is just a perfect story to show that. I mean, what they've done with 60 Minutes, which is the most independent broadcast I think I've ever seen, it really was sort of kept in its own separate space. You know, this idea of first suing them, so that the administration sues them, they create that opening, then the merger becomes into question because now they've got, you know, this FCC approval that they're waiting for, as you point out, and then they create this editorial oversight, which completely takes out that independence from 60 Minutes. And even though the people there who are doing the oversight are fantastic, it's still it sucks that 60 Minutes is going through that. And I just think this is the canary in the coal mine. We're going to see this happen everywhere. The media capitulation, whether it's NBC or MSNBC or CBS or any New York Times already gone, Washington Post is going through the same thing right now. We're going to see the ending of independent media, of really brilliant independent media that has been sort of the you know, such an important underpinning of democracy. This is what holds up democracy, is the ability for reporters to tell the truth, and for the public to know the truth about stories. You take that away, and, you know, come back to the story that I talked about earlier on about this feudal system where you take away capitalism away, you take away truth away, you take away, you know, the human and American spirit to want to achieve and to be the best you can be and to work hard to get there with the truth and an open and equal system. This is what America is. You start taking all that away and you get a monarchy, and maybe people want that, but it's not America.
No, it's a digital monarchy. America, you're done. Like, I mean, these are stories I never thought we'd be telling. You know, there is no freedom of the press in the United States.
No,
not anymore. Not anymore. Just because of the top-down pressure that Donald Trump can put on, and he knows all these people because he comes from the TV side, right? Like he knows how to get to all of these people. It is the weirdest time. You know, it's happening in the United States. It will come here depending on what happens in today's election. Pierre Poilievre is no different. I hate to bring it back to Canada, but we do have an election, so I'm going to do it. He has promised to defund CBC. He refused to have reporters on his airplane. He refused to let certain outlets ask him questions because he knew they would ask him questions that were really good questions. They were honest questions. He would not be able to answer without looking like MAGA, Maple MAGA, like a liar, because he's lied for 3 years, like Donald Trump lied for 3 years. There's a reason why we live in a post-truth society, and controlling the media in a post-truth society is so fucking important. And it's important because in a post-truth society with free media, these people would suffer consequences. Donald Trump would suffer consequences of repeated beatings in the media, the news, op-eds, fact-based opinion pieces, educational pieces that would sink him. You know, I'm sure there are stories that we don't know about, which probably will come out depending on how badly this continues to go for him, that people have sat on for years, afraid of self-interest, you know, afraid that if they write something, they might get fired. They might lose their job. Dude, it happens up here all the time, you know, and there's a reporter here in Canada. There's a reporter, and the same thing happened here. Her name is Rachel Gilmore. I'm not specifically a big fan of Rachel Gilmore because she's part of the Pick Me show, right? Everything's about her. But she was hired. She's a good reporter. She was hired to do fact checking for this election by a company called Bell Media. And when she was hired, she goes on Canada AM, which is an all-female anchored morning show, which is very difficult to watch, not because it's females, but all they do is talk about viral videos. They don't really do news. They're like, look at this cute puppy. I'm like, oh my God.
That was my first morning show. I used to produce that, you know, way back in the day.
I know, but you had real journalists.
You had real journalists, yeah. We had really good show. I watched it now. They're okay. They're real journalists.
Yeah, well, let's not get... Okay, so anyway, I know you don't want to be mean.
I can't say it. I can't say it.
It's not a great show. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What matters is that this Rachel Gilmore lady, she was hired to do some fact checking. She has been going after the hard right and Pierre Poilievre and the incel group that has held him up and all of his asshole friends for a long time. So Pierre Poilievre's machine, Jenny Byrne, everybody involved with him, this is Dollar Store Trump, this is Maple MAGA, these are the people, this is what they do. They start calling over to the board of directors at Bell Media. And they're like, you need to get rid of her before she starts this gig.
Oh my God.
And what did Bell do?
They caved.
They got rid of her before she started the gig. And that created this like enormous outpouring of like, oh, poor girl, for someone who's, you know, I'm not a big fan of hers.
Yeah.
But she shot up to #1 on Substack and received thousands of followers because of it. And the butterfly effect was kind of awesome to watch, right?
Yeah, she made a lot of money out of that. And
she really did.
I mean, you could say it's the pick me thing. I don't know. Look, I like her stuff. I think it's different and innovative. And for Canada, it's quite nice to see some of that stuff out there, you know, but
it's too her centric. I don't like, you know, that's what makes you really good at your job. You don't ever make it about you, right? Like, about me. Never make it about you. Like, I'm dying to ask you questions. Last week, you're telling a story about George Bush. You're like, oh, yeah, when I met him, I tried to tap him on the shoulder. I'm like, wait, you met George W. Bush? And then we're talking about this whole thing with CBS. And I'm like, did you work in the same building? Oh, yeah, I know all those people. Like, I know the producer. Like, you never make it about you. You could, but you don't. People like Rachel, they make it about themselves. That's just a personal preference of mine. If you're going to tell a story, tell a story. Don't make yourself the story. Don't turn yourself into something that's like, well, without me, this story doesn't get told. It's such a load of shit. Anyway,
but
she does good work.
There's room for both of all. I think there's room for people who are like inserting themselves in the story, and there's definitely room for people also just telling the story because, you know, we need both. That's how you get a good variety, I guess. I got to tell you a funny story about Andy Rooney.
Yeah. I love your stories. You got to tell more story time with Zev. Finish shows like story time with Zev because you knew all these people at 60 Minutes. You worked in the same building, and my understanding is you shared like a hallway of offices with Andy Rooney. Is that correct?
Yeah. So like, you know, 60 Minutes was in a different building completely. And I'd go over there and have meetings with them. They're all lovely. You know, they're very obviously talented journalists. And you walk in there thinking, oh, wow, I can't believe I'm in 60 Minutes' office. But way on the other end of the tracks was sort of the way the CBS morning show offices were, not the fancier offices, the less fancy office. But for some reason, Andy Rooney had his office on the 7th floor of that CBS building for a long time. And it was just on the way to the elevator for me. So every day I'd see him, I'd go and say, hey, Andy, how you doing? What's up? And he'd always have something very funny to say. You know, he's always like, because he's Andy Rooney. And he's always, you know, you remember they used to do those 2-minute things at the end of the show where it used to be
Loved him. Yeah.
Cranky as anything about every story they could imagine. And it's still, I mean, I met him towards the tail end of his life and he was still driving a car. And I was like, how is this man driving a car? He cannot even see straight. He's like, he should not be driving this vehicle. But this was not really a funny story where I'm taking it. I just can't. This reminded me of being at the Walter Cronkite funeral. And Andy Rooney gave the eulogy about Cronkite just seconds before he was, you know, as the last speaker. And I had a view from where I was standing of the sort of backstage of where the people said it was standing for the eulogy or getting ready for the eulogy. And I saw Andy Rooney, and on stage he was, you know, he couldn't barely finish his speech. He was so heartbroken about his friend passing. But then he walked off, and then I saw a glimpse of him backstage, and he was so devastated. He just was so, you know, in a private moment that he didn't think anyone would notice. You could see the actual anguish over the passing of his friend, who, you know, Walter Cronkite and that whole era of CBS News was just outstanding. It was a whole different world of journalism, and Andy Rooney represented that. And Andy Rooney represented this idea that you could go on national TV at the end of 60 Minutes every week and be cranky about something and be legitimately cranky about something on behalf of the American population, because they were cranky about
creatively and impactfully angry. But yeah, it was like 2 minutes of him just beefing over shit that he hated that week.
But that awesome. Everyone hated, you know, the people could really resonate with. It was sort of the consumer part of that whole show, and it was so beautiful the way they did that. And I could tell, as you know, as Andy was just he was so upset that day. The other time I saw him was at the elevator. I was going down and say, "Hey, Andy, how's you doing? How you doing?" And every day he'd hold up his whatever his sandwich was that he would have, and he said, "Oh, I got all my fixings here." That's what I kept mocking him about his fixings, and he'd have a joke with me about the fixings.
Oh, really? He seems like the kind of guy, like that old school journalist that would bring a sandwich to school.
Oh yeah, and then he'd be like, "So you're the new guy?" Like, yeah, I'm running the morning show. He says, I hear that. I hear you're doing a good job. Like a crank is anything, even when it's giving you a compliment.
You ever scared by his eyebrows?
I mean, they're big. They're big, bushy eyebrows. There's no doubt about it. Look, all those people. I mean, they're like family when you see them, because like they're just such beautiful people. And so you just think, oh my gosh, I know you forever, even though maybe you just met them.
Dude, those are the same legendary names that you shared office space with. Like Andy Rooney is one of the most legendary journalists of our time, and the staff from 60 Minutes, like Morley Safer.
Yeah,
I always loved Morley Safer. Mike Wallace.
Yeah, Mike Wallace, brilliant.
Mike Wallace was brilliant.
It's such a different era, and the fact that they all were still there when I was working there, it was just such. I got to see them at their sort of tail end of their careers.
Oh shit! For especially for a media file like you,
I
to
loved
be
it,
surrounded by like the cream of the crop when it comes to American journalism, and like keep in mind these are people that probably when you were there were like octogenarians, because I think Mike Wallace kept doing 60 Minutes. He was like 97 or something.
Yeah, they were old. That was that one Cronkite funeral. Is the first time that sank into me. I was like. So they put all the executives of these networks in the front pews, and I'd not met many people. Like I'd not met Lauer or anybody else in the whole world. And I was sitting right next to Lauer.
Oh yeah, Matt Lauer.
Who I was a big fan. I mean, I do morning TV, so I was such a fan of Matt Lauer.
Yeah.
So, and just sitting there and like being surrounded by this Diane Sawyer, all these like greats of American TV. Barbara Walters was there. It was like this crazy collection
Barbara
of people.
Walters, Diane Sawyer. I think Diane Sawyer. I still think she's hot.
Yeah. The amount of lighting they had on her. But those were good days of American journalism. I'm wary that I think that's all gonna is gonna be tampered down and become like a very sad. They did this in Hungary, they did this in Russia, they did this all over the place. So they sort of turn it into an autocratic, authoritarian news system, and it's about paying tribute, not about covering the story. So hopefully that changes, and hopefully some people start speaking out about it. I'm glad Blow did what he had to do there. Yeah,
dude. All I know is that the next time we get on a show, I'm going to ask you all about Matt Lauer. Way to open that one up.
Whoa. There is a story there about Matt Lauer that I don't think has been told yet. And that whole scandal is
Oh, dude, let's tease it. Tomorrow, not only are we going to come back with the results of Canada's election, we will have a new prime minister. We're going to talk about how it affects Canada, how this will affect the United States of America. We'll break some of that down. I'm sure we'll get to some other shit. And I'm going to try and make Zev, not ask, I'm going to try and make him tell me that Matt Lauer story.
Okay. I don't mind, because I'm not beholden to those guys anymore. I used to worry about my career, but these days, hey, I can talk about anything, no problem. I will reveal it all tomorrow.
Yeah, good. That's the benefit of not being beholden to Donald Trump, right?
Exactly.
Or anybody else. You get to tell these stories. So big Matt Lauer story coming up tomorrow with my friend Zev on the FiveStack. And thank you very much for watching, everybody. Hopefully this time didn't screw anybody up too much. Hopefully you can continue to make this time, because I really enjoy doing this with you. And go Canada. We'll kind of keep you up to date. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm not there very much. My Substack will keep you up to date on the elections. Polls close at, I think, around 9 o'clock tonight. And we'll be finding out who's going to be the next prime minister, and not underscoring the importance of Canada in the wheel of democracy, when it comes to the world, is that, the spokes are only there right now because of Canada and Western civilization. So, will this be a repudiation of Trump? Will this be the beginning of an authoritarian bent here in Canada with a guy like Pierre Poilievre, dollar store Trump? We don't know. All I know is polls are tight. Polls don't vote. People do. Everybody, you got to get out there and do your very best. And we're going to try and take Canada back from the clutches of that MAGA movement. We're going to try and prevent Pierre Poilievre from becoming Canada's next prime minister. And I hope to report happy things back to my American friends tomorrow.
I hope so too. DeanBlundell.substack.com. That's the Substack. Subscribe to it today if you haven't yet. I'm at narrative.org. Thanks for being here. We'll be back tomorrow at 3:30? 3:30 or 3?
Yeah, 3:30 sounds great.
3:30 sounds better for me.
Okay,
have a good night, everybody. Bye.